Lynda.com sold recently to LinkedIn for $1.5 billion. Thank you. And I know that a lot of people were shocked at the high price tag, but in 2012, Forbes came out with this article that the space that I'm in is a $1 trillion opportunity. And I love the subhead here. It says, no field operates more inefficiently than education. A new breed of disruptors is finally going to fix it, and here's how to join them. Now, Lynda.com is definitely one of these disruptors, but we weren't part of this article. In fact, we really weren't part of on anybody's radar. First of all, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and some of the motivations for creating Lynda.com. I was born in 1955, and classrooms looked like this, much like they still look today and like they looked 150 years before I was born. This is a very big example of standardized one-size-fits-all learning, which is probably what most of us are the products of. When I was growing up, I was a straight-A student. I loved school. And then when I was about 7 years old, my parents got divorced, and it was a really terrible trauma for me. I had to go live with my grandparents, and I was kind of went from being a great student to being very confused and having a lot of inner turmoil and inner trauma, and it affected my grades and it affected my attitude towards my education. I started to get C's and D's, and I just simply didn't care about school. When I was in junior high, I read a book called Summerhill, which talked about a different kind of education that was happening in England. The school was in England, and the idea was that there were no grades, there were no prerequisites, there were just a lot of really great teachers and classes, and students were given the opportunity to pick what they wanted to learn, and even if they came into the school feeling disenfranchised like I did, they would ultimately become self-motivated learners and learn to love learning. And I thought, well, that sounds a lot better than the kind of school that I'm in. At the time, I was working at a hot dog stand for $1.35 an hour. I was 15 years old, and I found a local alternative progressive high school and went to the principal and said, can I pay with my hot dog stand salary and go to your school? And he said yes, and that changed my life. So while I was at the progressive alternative high school, I took a women's studies class when I was 15. And at first I thought feminism was all about women who hated men, and I was kind of boy crazy, so that didn't fit me very well. So, but what I learned as I started to read the literature and join this class was that it was about something different. It was about equal opportunities, and it was about having goals for yourself that were bigger than what society's expectations were. Now, my mother wanted me to go to college, but she wanted me to go to college because she wanted me to meet somebody who could provide for me better than my dad had provided for her. It really wasn't to go to college to learn what I would want to do. And I think a lot of young women today don't realize that this movement, the feminist movement, really made for a lot of changes and a lot of opportunities that didn't exist when I was a little girl. So the key takeaways for me, Summerhill was all about, wow, learning can be about passion and choice. It doesn't have to be about grades. And you can learn anything if you're motivated and curious. And feminism was, you can be anything. So I was also very fortunate to go to Evergreen State College, which is not far from here in Olympia, Washington. Also a very progressive college with no grades, no prerequisites. I graduated in 1976, sorry about that. And I went back not long ago and I saw the brochure, and it talked about what are the expectations of an Evergreen graduate. And I know that the text is hard to read here, so I summarized it. And the expectations are that you're responsible for your own education. You're not being motivated by a grade, you're being motivated by what it is you want to learn and what it is you want to do. That it's your expectation to participate and collaborate in the world, to communicate effectively and creatively, to demonstrate integrative, critical thinking, and apply qualitative, quantitative inquiry to multidisciplinary thinking, and to demonstrate synthesis of all of that learning. And I thought, wow, that is really an amazing expectation. And I feel so fortunate that I got this experience, but I think part of what Lynda.com is how can I bring this experience to the masses? So when I graduated from college, I did a number of things. I ended up in the film industry working in special effects as an animator. And right around that time, my boyfriend brought home an Apple II Plus, and he was very disappointed in me that I could care less. So to kind of please him, I cracked open the manual, and I found it completely incomprehensible. And I threw it away, and I just decided in true Evergreen, sort of progressive school spirit that I would just teach myself, that I would be motivated and I would figure it out. And I ended up really loving it, and eventually my boyfriend called himself a computer widow. So when I was shopping for a printer ribbon for my dot matrix printer, for those of you who are as old as I am, I saw the first Macintosh. And I thought, and I played with it, and I just thought, wow, this is how computers should be. I must have one. I couldn't afford it. I put it on my credit card, paid ridiculous interest on it, paid way too much money for it. But what it did was I was one of the very early adopters of a Macintosh, and I used it for animation and special effects and some of the things that I was doing professionally. And I was invited to apply for, and I received a contract to work directly with Ralph Winter and William Shatner on Star Trek V to create an animated storyboard for them. And I had to build a 3D model of a Starship Enterprise on my Macintosh and figure out how to do this animation. And I ended up being written about in Wikipedia as the first person to ever make an animated pre-visualization on a personal computer for a major motion picture. So that's kind of cool. And that project got me a lot of attention. And Apple sought me out because they knew that I'd used the Mac for it. And they invited me to do a worldwide tour. So when I was 30 years old, this is me at age 30, I got my first taste doing what I'm doing right now, which is speaking in front of an audience. And it was really awesome. I loved it. I continued to work in the film festival until I had my daughter when I was 33. And that kind of changed everything, and it made it really difficult to work the kind of long hours that were expected of me. So I was asked to give a lecture at Art Center College of Design, which, for those of you who have not heard of it, it's kind of like the Harvard of art colleges. It's in Pasadena, California. I had my daughter in a sling. I was nursing her in the hallway, and they invited me to come and be a faculty member there, and I taught there until 1996. I taught digital imaging, animation on the computer, and interactive design. And some of the things that I found was that I was teaching the same class over and over. I was perfecting my craft as a teacher. I would notice that if the students took notes during my lecture, that they wouldn't learn what I was teaching them because they really needed to see it. So I would tell them, don't write any notes and I'll make great handouts. So I got to really perfect handouts. And later, as we came to really embrace video as a as a teaching medium, this really came to play because you don't have to take notes. You're watching it, you're hearing it. It's much more visceral than the way that students were used to learning. So around that time, I saw the very first web browser. And because I was teaching at art college, I thought, well, my art students are going to need to know how to publish their images, and this is going to be the future of where business cards are and brochures are. And so I went to the bookstore to look for a book to teach them web design and realized that no one had written it. And that, I was a pretty experienced teacher. I love to research new things. I was interested in this. Maybe I should write the book. I know how to write curriculum. So I was rejected by every publisher that I approached my book idea to, but I was a single mom at the time and I needed to get paid to do the work to write the book. So I went to a magazine, and at that time you could make money writing magazine articles. It's no longer really true. But I was able to, in monthly installments, write my book and get paid to write it by publishing it in magazines. And this is one of my articles. So around that time, I bought my first domain. And someone, because of the magazine, had written to me, and she was Debbie@Debbie.com. And I thought, I wonder if Lynda.com is available. It was. I bought it for $35, and it became my sandbox to teach myself web design and also to interact with the public who were reading my magazine articles. and ultimately my book. And this had all kinds of really advanced ideas like animated transparent GIFs and seamless background tiles and just all kinds of stuff that I was teaching myself. Around that time, I got married to my husband and partner, Bruce Haven, who collaborated with me on a lot of the early books and on the entire business and business model of Lynda.com. So here we are. This is a more current picture. I found through my book, I had this very unusual occurrence, which is that my first book was a bestseller. And it was translated into lots of languages. And so these things happened. I started to impact a lot more people than I was impacting in the classroom at Art Center. And it just had this enormous reach. Hundreds of thousands of people were reading the work and learning from it and getting jobs and writing to me about how it was changing their lives. And I also experienced passive income, which is where I would get, maybe $1 for every book that's sold. Well, when that starts to be hundreds of thousands of books, it starts to be significant revenue to me personally. That I did the work once, but I got paid for it many times, and that was kind of a revelation to me that wow, that's a great way to earn a living, right? And so with a little bit of money from revenues, $20,000 to be exact, my husband and I got married. We moved to a little town called Ojai, California, and we opened a training center. And this is our early curriculum. We were teaching things, you can't read it on this screen, but we were teaching things like Flash and Dreamweaver and things like that. And this is a picture of me in front of the, IKEA furniture and the CRT screens and these early computers that we bought. All the classes sold out. Our first year that we were in business was $1.7 million in revenue. And we started to get so popular that we had to bring on other teachers. This is Garrick Chow, who still teaches on Lynda.com 17 years later, or however long later. And we were just humming along. Revenues got up to be about $3.5 million. We had a staff of 35 people. And I went to my book publisher and I wanted to write a book about Photoshop and was told, no, somebody else is writing the Photoshop books. You can't do that. So in typical I don't take no for an answer and figure out another way, we started to make videotapes and we were self-publishing them. So I was recording them, I was editing them, my husband was creating the covers and taking them and getting them duplicated, and it was like a two-person production team, and we started doing these videos. And what I realized is I'm a teacher, and these are just form factors. It's a form factor to write a book, it's a form factor to get up and talk in front of an audience or record a video. And everything was humming along just great until some forces outside of our control. The market crash of 2001, all of our customers who were coming to the school were funded by VCs. Their money dried up, they couldn't come. The attacks on the Twin Towers happened, nobody was traveling, there was a huge moratorium on air travel, and our classroom business totally dried up. So we decided to put the lessons online, which was the much bigger idea, but we didn't know it at the time. It was a pivot, it was an adaptation to the market conditions. We cut apart the videos into lots of pieces. We had about 20 of them. We made 1,000 movies out of these 20, 2 or 3 hour long videos. We put it online as a subscription service, one of the very first subscription services, $25 a month. And we took a poll amongst our 9 employees because we had to downsize because of all of the adverse market conditions at that time. So we all took a poll. How many subscribers will we get? We thought, maybe in our first month, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. We never guessed because it was only 30 people. And in the first year, it was only 1,000 people. And you have to realize that we put our lessons online before YouTube, before broadband. It was just a little too early to market, but it still gave us this first mover advantage. My book agent used to tell me there are 3 F's in publishing. You're first, fabulous, or you're F'd. So I would like to believe that we were first and fabulous. So some of the key ideas behind Lynda.com, that these movies are bite-sized and searchable. You can either watch a whole bunch of them in order, you can watch them out of order. I think what makes great content, how content becomes queen, it's not just any old content. The content has to be of very high quality. And it isn't just high audio quality and high video quality, it's the integrity of how you're teaching. And as a teacher, how do I use this? Why do I use this? When do I use this? We infused all of our teachers who came onto Lynda.com with the understanding that how they taught was really important and how they staged the materials was really important. And that's one of our differentiators. We didn't go after to say we're replacing in-person teaching. We have always believed that we're a complement and a supplement to in-person teaching, and this made it so that teachers at universities, at K-12, all embraced Lynda.com as a complement and a supplement to what they were doing, not a competition. We picked, instead of academics and stuffy people who might have Harvard degrees, or, not that they're all stuffy, but, we picked people who were credible and real world and also great teachers. So it's highly curated. The fact that if you don't remember something, it's always there. You can repeat it, you can rewatch it. The interdisciplinary idea of Summerhill and Evergreen really comes in there when you hit critical mass with enough content, where you might go in there to learn SEO, but then you realize you need to learn a little bit of Photoshop and you need to learn a little bit of Excel, and you're trying to do a project and it may be a bunch of disparate skills that you're trying to build. And very important that it's anonymous. Nobody's judging you, nobody's grading you. It's a fear-free style of learning. And I didn't put up one of the other really key ideas, which is that we paid our contributors royalties, much like I earned royalties on my first book, and hundreds of teachers on Lynda.com earn their entire living on Lynda. It's kind of amazing. So I'm speaking, this is called Sage on the Stage. I'm on the stage, this is one size fits all. You're all listening to me talk. If you are checking your email, or you had a bad morning, or you've already heard me say something, you might be tuning me in or out. This is, education as we've known it. What Lynda.com is the ability to really leverage what you can do online that you can't do in person. If we were all online right now on Lynda.com, every single one of you would be doing something different, learning something different, tailored to you, more personal. The way that I went about it was, first of all, I believed in myself and I stuck my neck out. It takes a little bit of belief in yourself to write a book or to write a blog post or to, be a teacher and stand on stage and presume that you know more than anybody else. I proved that the way that I was teaching had marketability before, betting the farm on the idea. Tried and iterated, never took no for an answer when there were things that we wanted to do. We just figured out a way around the no. Followed my heart and passion, thought really deeply about not only the audience, but what you can do differently online versus what you can do in person and how to differentiate ourselves. Seized the opportunity. The opportunity was way bigger than what we ever imagined. We were just a husband and wife team writing books and creating a training center, much like, the folks who are putting on this conference just decided one day to put on a conference. It was kind of a casual decision. It wasn't, we're going to go out there and make $1.5 billion sale. Listened to others and definitely trusted my own gut more and more the older and more experienced I got. So, Lynda.com and LinkedIn, why did we sell and what do I think that means? We are, for one thing, I have a lot of peace of mind because we were really great to our staff and we have an incredible culture at Lynda. And LinkedIn is one of the top rated companies to work for. So everybody is very happy to have become employees, to have really amazing new opportunities of growth. And they're being treated like gold, which is how I want them to be treated. And more importantly, we had always strived to be a household word. We always knew that the bigger we were, the more impact we had, the more people who subscribed, that was our goal, was to grow. And it goes hand in hand that you grow the revenue, but it also is the goal of any kind, spreading knowledge and democratizing knowledge and making it an easier way for people to learn skills that seem out of reach. So to go from a few million subscribers to 380 million subscribers is huge impact, and that's tremendously exciting. So I recently announced that I'm dropping out of Lynda. I'm going to create Lynda 2.0, Lynda.com, Lynda Weinman 2.0, not Lynda.com 2.0. And the thing that I'm really focusing on, education is something that was developed. This idea of standardized education was developed hundreds of years ago for basically a factory worker mentality. And today we really need to disrupt that because we need to create students and people who are going to learn how to be innovative and how to collaborate with each other and how to fix the world, because the world needs a whole lot of fixing and it's not just rote learning that we need to create. So I believe that education is a very tarnished brand and learning is a pristine brand. So I'm really interested in learning. And this is my favorite learning pyramid. It talks about retention. And it's 10 to 30% that you learn from a lecture or from reading or from something more multimedia like Lynda.com with animation and video, or a demonstration. Where you really start to get deep learning is when you have a discussion about something, when you apply it, or most of all, when you teach, when you turn around and teach. So Lynda.com did a great job of the upper part of this pyramid, just memorializing great teachers, great lectures, and spreading them and distributing them. My next invention is going to be about the bottom part of this pyramid, about more interpersonal skills and how we actually learn and how we actually retain. And I'm also planning to take a little break. So as this was my Halloween costume, Queen of Content, I'd like to wave my magic Queen of Content wand and wish you all the very best with your startups. And thank you for inviting me, and I hope I was able to share something of value. Thank you.